El 10º Festival Internacional de Cine Político Argentina, FICIP, se posterga por el COVID-19. Estaremos junto a ustedes del 27 de mayo al 4 de junio con variadas actividades online, películas ganadoras de estos 9 años y entrevistas a sus directores, clases magistrales de temas diversos con interacción de los panelistas, mesa virtual de las asociaciones de cine, exposición de los proyectos en desarrollo y algo más. Todo en forma online y gratuita. Nos acompañan el INCA, entidades de la industria audiovisual y la plataforma Contar. Para mayor información, www.ficip.com.ar. ¡No te lo pierdas!
Hi, my name's Robert Connolly. I'm the writer and director of the feature film Balibo, and I'd just like to congratulate the festival on its 10th anniversary. Balibo screened in 2011, a massive highlight for me in my career, and thank you so much for the award that year. Very excited for you all that the festival is still going and surviving these very difficult times, and I hope that you're all well and the future of the festival is secure. Balibo is the story of the events in East Timor, in Timor-Leste, in 1975. It was a story that was a very important one for me in my career, and one that was driven by an incredible fascination with the events of that time and the tragic murder of 5 journalists and the incredible tragedy that befell Timor-Leste, a country that lost over 200,000 people between 1975 and 1999, and the role of those journalists during that time in 1975 and their attempts to tell the world what was happening was my way into the story. I guess as an Australian filmmaker, the fact that they were Australian-based journalists interest me. But it was my many, many trips to Timor-Leste that changed that film. It was while I was there that I discovered the story of their president at the time, Nobel Prize winner José Ramos Horta, and Horta's work as a young man to help free their country, to help their country eventually become independent, as it did in 1999. And along the way, I came to develop a great interest and respect for the Timorese story, you know, for the tragedy that had befallen this country, but also the story of a nation's desperate quest, successfully, ultimately, to become independent. And while there was great tragedy in the story, I found great optimism in this incredible journey that this country had gone on. It was important for me to make the film in Timor-Leste. I wasn't interested in faking it or recreating it. I felt compelled to make the film in that country. And so we travelled there in 2008 to make the film. It was a time when the United Nations...
We sit here in Balibo and wait for an attack which may not happen at all. The buildings here are deserted. We spoke to one soldier today who believes that a potion given to him by his family...
Wasn't interested in faking it or recreating it. I felt compelled to make the film in that country. And so we travelled there in 2008 to make the film. It was a time when the United Nations were still on the ground, and when peacekeepers were there from various different countries, from Portugal, from Australia, you know, and helping that country rebuild itself. And we were given permission to film there by the president, José Ramos Horta, and to work with local filmmakers and the local people to help recreate this story. One of the things that, again, was a massive highlight in my career was actually filming the scenes in the film that occurred in the 400-year-old Portuguese fort that sits above Balibo, that looks out to sea, where the journalists in 1975 had witnessed the Indonesian invasion.
I am offering you full access to my country to tell our story.
One of the great things was to film there, to take the actors to the place where these men had witnessed these events and had sadly lost their life, and to actually recreate and film those sequences in that very place where those events had happened. It was an amazing experience. The Timorese army turned up and helped us and played extras in the scene, and many of the locals in Balibo itself who came to help us recreate the scene had actually been there in 1975. And so for them, it was... In terms of explaining the process of making the film, being a narrative work, it was a really interesting kind of ethical path as a filmmaker, to work out how to tell a story through a work of dramatic fiction that may in fact be the only recorded work about the actual murder of these men. How much can I change as a filmmaker? How much do I have to be forensic about the actual events? And I was very lucky that a coronial inquiry had happened while I was writing the script into the death of one of the 5 journalists, Brian Peters. And the coroner had done an amazing job of bringing witnesses from that time, protected, into Australia, and had put together the pieces of what Darrell Pinch, the coroner, felt had happened. And so we believed, even though we were working in the space of narrative fiction, that it was critical for us to make the film as accurate as we could, to use the coroner's findings to almost be a blueprint for how we should depict those events. So as you can imagine, our process took our very small and humble film crew, these amazing actors I was working with, to the township of Balibo with the details from the coroner of what had actually happened, and we worked out how to recreate this very, very tragic event. I worked with a small crew. I felt kind of that we needed to somehow have a humility about us in our presence within Timor-Leste, which, remains one of the poorest countries in Southeast Asia and one of Australia's closest neighbours. And, with that small, tight crew, with as many locals as we could gather to work with us, we began this journey all those years ago to make that film. Interestingly, I returned to Timor-Leste for the 10-year anniversary of the film last year. I took my 15-year-old daughter with me, and we had a screening in Dili for the locals. And over time, the film has become quite important as part of the nation's story and how it depicted this period of history. But what excited me most was the Timorese filmmakers. I think if that film was to be made now, it would be made by local Timorese filmmakers. Whereas when I made it back then, there wasn't an industry. There is now. And it's exciting to see. And I'm sure perhaps in the festival in the future, you will see work submitted and hopefully screened from filmmakers within that culture, telling the story of their own history and the challenges ahead. I chose the project, and it's always a very tricky journey with every film that you choose to make, but I chose the project, I think, initially out of a kind of curiosity with the untold stories. I was 24 when I was first told the story of the Balibo 5, and I'd never heard about it, and it wasn't a story you read about in the media. And I think cinema has the and documentary and works of fiction have this opportunity to illuminate things and stories which are hidden from the mainstream, hidden from future generations. And I think one of the great gifts that cinema offers in your career is the chance to put things on a record for history's sake. So the film is made, it will exist, and it will continue to exist. It is currently banned in Indonesia, and yet I meet incredible Indonesian filmmakers who've all seen the film and talk very openly about its impact on them. So I think that is certainly something that your festival celebrates and explores, and you know, in terms of the global opportunity for filmmakers like myself to show our political work.
I've come a long way to find you, Roger East. My name is Jose Ramos Horta. My country is in grave danger. There is a story to tell and no one is telling it.
You need somebody younger.
Your country already sent young journalists, 5 of them.
We sit here in Balibo and wait for an attack which may not happen at all. The buildings here are deserted. We spoke to one soldier today who believes that a potion given to him by his family...
There are these 5 young journalists that have gone missing.
I am offering you full access to my country to tell our story.
That's for you.
Thank you.
They were sitting where you're sitting.
Where were they going? To their Indonesian warships off the coast.
Yes.
Why, they ask, are the Indonesians invading us? That's all they want. For the United Nations to care about what is happening here.
I want to find out what happened to them, why it happened to them, and who did it to them.
And all you care about is these 5 journalists.
But if I find out what happened, it's going to be on the front page.
They know you are here, Roger, because your country told them you are here.
I can see burning in the streets. I can see shelling from ships off the coast.
But you know who did care, those 5 men? Okay, they had the courage to come when no one else did.
The next project I'm working on is a political film in its own way, but very different. It's based on an Australian book called Blueback by Tim Winton, and it's a film about a young girl and a fish. It's a big environmental film about saving the ocean. Again, it is a work of fiction, of drama, but the underlining themes are about the optimism we need to tackle climate change. You know, the idea that when people despair, they are not motivated to action. And the ocean itself is one of the most inspiring places. You know, we've all swum in the ocean and know that kind of intoxicating feeling that you have, the salt water, the marine life. And so somehow I'm hoping that film can capture that magic and translate it for future audiences. I've recently finished a film with my very close friend, the Australian actor Eric Bana, a film called The Dry. It's a detective mystery set about 5 hours from here in regional Victoria in Australia. Many of you would have seen the bushfires and the drought that has afflicted the land here. And that film is a detective mystery set in that world. And, you know, I look forward to, you know, screening that and the opportunity to show people this, you know, very powerful Australian story about our landscape, our very specific landscape, but with, a global resonance as we all face the impact and the implication of climate change. I see the future of cinema after COVID-19, when the world comes to grips with this terrible tragedy and the challenges that we're all facing, as a positive one. People love the cinema. We love viewing works for the screen collectively. While I'm sure many people there and here and everywhere are kind of massively consumed with content at home, that collective experience of watching a work and discussing it, I think specifically in the event cinema area, that suits works of political cinema. The opportunity to screen a film and to discuss it with people and to stir up ideas and discussion through cinema is such a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I can only be optimistic that people will return to cinemas. We love the experience. It was the clearly dominant art form and form of expression of the 20th century. And while here in the 21st century there's so much streaming and the consumption is largely shifted to home, my feeling is that post-COVID-19 we're all going to want to get out. We're going to want to get out and celebrate each other, our friendships, our community, live music, theatre, and definitely return to cinema and to film festivals like yours. Thank you for the invitation to speak about my work and to reflect on Balibo 10 years on with your festival. And thank you again for championing that film so early in my career. I wish you all the best in this very, very difficult time, and I hope you're all well and healthy, and I look forward hopefully to visiting the festival in the future, and all the best.
La es Manasí. Él trabajaba ahí en esa época.
Trabajaba.
Sí, trabajaba.
To him by his family.
Aspettami qua, ma dove vai? Carlos!
But you know who did kill those 5 men? Okay, they had the courage to come when no one...
Capturé, torturé, humilié, colonisé, aliéné, assimilé, canalisé, civilisé, banalisé, dépouillé, fouillé, divisé, pillé, minimisé, dévalisé, capitalisé.
Sometimes Jorge and Alex take flowers to the graves of their relatives. Jorge's uncle, Alex's father.
¿Cómo sabes que no es uno de los nuestros?
No me suena la cara.
They feel during they sitting inside the classroom any bomb and any
La operación Plomo Fundido dejó un 85% de víctimas civiles, el tercio de ellos niños.
Usando solamente palabras españolas.
Que tenemos nosotros eso como un arma de vida.
Mentiras conquistarán mi conciencia, pero si tengo decencia, General Perón, acompañado por el ministro de Aeronáutica, asiste a la prueba final de esta cabal expresión del esfuerzo, la capacidad y el éxito de nuestra técnica.
Edmundo Weiss realizó el vuelo de prueba inaugural del Pulqui 2.